Hey, what is going on, guys? It's DK. Back at you with another video here, tweeting the two-game NBA Mate Set on Friday. Before I get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, my name is DK. I make daily videos breaking down NBA, NFL, PGA, and esports. Daily fantasy sports slates. Before I get into analysis real quick, I do want to say thank you guys again for all support. Currently closing in on 5K subs, which is just crazy to think about. Right now, I think at 4.77 thousand subscribers. So the easiest way to support me with all the content being free is just leave a like button on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hit the notification bell, and spread the word. If you have friends that play DFS and you enjoy the content, you're making money, spread the word. Greatly, greatly appreciate that. Also, if you cannot watch the videos, I do upload on Apple Podcasts. The link is in the description below, just the DK DFS show. With that out of the way, let's jump into the video. So before we talk about this two-game slate, let's take a look back at my showdown lineup from the Lakers-Rockets game. So it went really, really well. I feel really good about it. If you guys watch that showdown video, I mentioned, LeBron, AD were the two guys I was prioritizing. I was not getting into Harden. I liked Westbrook a little better for his price. And then I talked about I was playing Rondo. I mentioned play one of those guys in the mid-range in the captain so I could get the three studs that I wanted. So Rondo in the captain with LeBron, AD, Westbrook. Jeff Green was one of those value plays I really liked. Markieff Morris got in a little bit of foul trouble, so you did get a little bit unlucky there. He probably would have got a few extra points. The winning lineup, it had Austin Rivers. He kind of had a breakout game, so they extended him. Again, that's like a huge risk, but this is a lineup that a lot of people got to. I know a lot of people play the same exact lineup. A few people in my DMs are asking me about it, and they landed on the same lineup. So really, really good night. Walking away with over $350 from this, so cannot complain at all. And yeah, let's talk about this final two-game slate of the NBA season. We have Nuggets Clippers a 217 over under. Clippers are 8-point favorites. Closeout game here potentially. And then Celtics Raptors game 7 203.5 over under. Celtics are 3-point favorites. So start with center and Nikola Jokic. Oh, man, this is just, besides game one of this two-game slate, it's just a slate that I have not gotten right. And you guys know, full disclosure, I do not like this two-game slate. We have two really good defensive teams playing against each other. And then we have inconsistent rotations with Denver with the Clippers. So not a slate that I will risk a lot of money on. I felt much more comfortable with the showdown slate tonight. It worked out. This slate is just, it is so hard to figure out, what exactly is going to happen with some of these guys in their minutes. So it makes it a lot harder. So I would recommend playing light, even lighter than normal on smaller slates. But yeah, Jokic is at 10K. If Denver has any shot of winning, it has to because of a big game from Jokic. He has 60 fans for an upset here. So it's just all about, do you have enough, is there enough value where you feel comfortable to get him in there? Right? We know the offense come from. It's Jokic, it's Murray. They did extend MPJ last game. I don't know if we're going to get that again because it's a Mike Malone. And MPJ's minutes, 15, 20. And then the last game he put over 30. So super hard to nail down what Mike Malone's going to do. But yeah, Jokic is a guy that I feel like is a pretty safe spend up. And with it being a must-win game, I feel like he's going to come out strong here. So have interest in Jokic, obviously at 10K. Tice at 5-6. I'm still tilting from that slate a couple games ago because I told you guys I had stacked Boston, Toronto literally every single time. The one time I didn't do it was that last game. It goes to double overtime. Again, it's just the way the DFS goes sometimes. But Tice, so he played 47 minutes, 37 in regulation. 37 minutes from Daniel Tice. If we're going to get those type of minutes, then Tice is one of the better plays in the mid-range. Now, do we get that again? I don't know. And he's not like he's a super high-usage guy, but just the minutes thing, right? Like, I would prefer 37 minutes of Daniel Tice from 37 minutes of Jeremy Grant, for sure, right? So, do we get that again? I don't know, because it's Brad Stevens. We've seen Robert Williams play 20-plus, or around 20 minutes in the series, and we've seen him play 8 minutes. So, it kind of depends. But if Tice gets extended, if we get 35-plus minutes from Daniel Tice, I think he looks like one of the better plays in the mid-range. Ibaka is, again, he's at a playable price at 5-4. He has to be super productive. He's been pretty solid. He's a riskier option. And I don't think there's any way he gets extended here, even if Gasol gets in foul trouble, because their closing lineup now isn't playing either. They're playing small ball Siakam at the 5, and Norman Powell's playing. Now, do we get that again? I don't think it's necessarily guaranteed, But it worries me that there's in my opinion, there's very, very slim chance Ibaka gets like over 22 minutes. So that's the worry. He can still get you there, but I think he's just more of a contrarian play again. Zubac, you guys know how I feel about this Clippers big man rotation. How many minutes does he get? If he gets 30, like the last game, he looks a lot better at 5K. If he plays 20, not so much. So it's really all about what Doc Rivers does, and another one, you have to get lucky. It's literally all luck because it's inconsistent on a night-to-night basis. You don't know. That last game, it wasn't because of blowout 3 games ago. They just closed with Michael Green. So it's whatever Doc Rivers feels, he's going to close with. So it makes all 3 of Zubac, Harrell, and Green super risky. If you play one of them, I think I would only play one. I don't think I would play more than one. And what you really need is you need to get lucky and hope the guy you pick closes the game. Because if not, there's a pretty good chance they don't get value. So that's the risk with all 3 Clippers centers. Yeah, Harrell's a 4-3. I don't think there's a chance he closes. Like, Zubac has closed a game. JaMychal Green's closed a game. I don't think Harrell closes. I think the only way I would consider him is getting the game blows out, which is possible. Right, we saw it there in Game 1. I'll just talk about all 3 Clipper centers. And finally, again, JaMychal Green. How many minutes do we get at him? He had an absolute floor game in 18 minutes, 2 fancy points. If we get 18 again from JaMychal Green, I do not expect 2 fancy points. I expect somewhere probably from 10 to 15-ish, maybe a little bit more. So he's someone you can consider. Obviously would look a little bit better if he plays 26 when he closed the game 3 games ago. So it's all about really getting lucky if you play one of those Clipper centers and hope the guy you pick closes the game. Now, Paul Millsap, another headache situation. What are his minutes going to be? Well, it looked like Mike Malone was going to play him good minutes this series. 24 in a blowout, 32, 28, and then comes out and plays him 14 minutes. Right? So this is what I'm talking about on the slate. How many minutes does Millsap get? Well, I think it's somewhere between 14 to 30. If he gets 14, I hate him as a play. If he gets 30, I think there's a pretty good chance he gets value. Another one you literally have to get lucky on. So that's really the breakdown there with Millsap. Marc Gasol is a guy I'm going to stay away from, and the reason being, they're not closing right now. They're closing with the small ball lineup, and they've done that last couple of games. I know the last game was a blowout, but I'm not confident right now they're closing Gasol. I guess there's still a chance, right? They could go back to closing Gasol. It's a possibility, but it's not a good look when they've kind of faced it. They pulled him early 2 games ago, and then they did not bring him in that last game, which does worry me. So playable, but personally, right now, I would rather take the shot on Norman Powell at a similar price. Robert Williams, 9 and 8 minutes last couple games. It's not looking good. I mean, there's an outside chance he could get 15 like he did earlier in the series, but back-to-back games of 9 and 8 minutes is not great. I think what you need here is you need Tice foul trouble, which is possible. It is. But it's not looking good with Williams. Also, Wanamaker is getting extended. He's been extended the last couple games. So, based off last 2 games, Wanamaker looks like the safer option, even though Robert Williams is the better point per minute guy, because Wanamaker's just getting more minutes. And that's it, right? Plumlee, I always mention him. Like, you really need Jokic foul trouble, or you need the blowout. One of those two, like, he definitely can get value at min price. Like, if the game blows out, I think we get about 15 minutes from him. Jokic foul trouble, who knows how many minutes he gets. It depends, you know, if and when Jokic gets in foul trouble. If not, he's going to play like 8 or 9 minutes. That's it for center. So let's move on to power forward. Tatum's at 9.5. I finally got the breakout game from him, but again, it was double overtime. And he kind of didn't do a whole lot in the overtimes. It was really Jaylen Brown that took over. Marcus Smart, too, made me look like a fool. So, yeah, 9.5. He is more of a contrarian play, in my opinion, on this slate. I would feel more comfortable getting to Nikola Jokic. I would feel more comfortable getting to Kawhi Leonard. Now, sure, there's a little bit more of a blowout risk in that game, but I just think, you know, these 2 teams are really, really good defensively, and the reason why it was, you know, so many guys crushed for their salary was because of the double overtime. So Tatum is, once again, a contrarian play. I've literally played him with the last 4 slates. I might just do it again, but I don't think he's in your optimal build. Siakam's at 7.8. He kind of disappeared. Again, I mentioned it's always, for me, it's going to be Fred VanVleet and Lowry, and it's going to be those two again over Siakam. Now, he did shoot 5 of 19. He shot terribly, so he probably doesn't shoot that bad again, and the ownership will drop. It always happens, guys. Like, the ownership on Siakam is going to be super low. The ownership on Kemba is going to be super, super low after being a huge disappointment the last game. So, yeah, I mean, I don't mind going to Siakam. I think he is a more contrarian play on the slate, but the ownership is going to be low. And he still will play over 40 minutes. Obviously, Game 7, right? Everyone's going to play huge minutes, especially those Toronto guys. OG Anunoby, probably slowly coming up. He was going to play 40 minutes in regular time, which is better than the 35. It's tricky. If he plays 40 to 45 minutes, he looks a little bit better. If he plays like 30 to 35, not so much. So I'm fine with him in the mid-range. I don't really think he's going to break the slate. He's more out there for his defense. But if the minutes are there, like Tice, right? If Tice gets extended a bit, if OG plays close to 40 or 40 or more, and Tice gets close to 40, like, they look a lot better than they do playing around like 30-ish minutes. Michael Porter Jr., another one. What are his minutes going to be? Your guess is as good as mine. 23, then 16, then 23, then 34. Good luck trying to guess what Michael Porter Jr. gets for minutes. If he plays 15, he's going to completely bust. If he plays close to 35, like he did last game, he has a chance to break the slate. I know I'm saying this about a lot of guys, but this is the reason I'm not risking a lot in the slate, because it's a guessing game with minutes. It really is for most of the players in the slate. Besides, like, the main Toronto guys, the main Boston guys, Jokic, Murray, Kawhi, Paul George. Other than that, like the studs, like the value guys are so hard to try to nail down what their minutes are going to be. Now, MPJ is the better offensive player. He's a guy that has more upside than Millsap. So I would personally rather take the shot on MPJ and just hope the minutes are there. But that's just me. He could play 15 minutes, and if he does, he's gonna bust. Jeremy Grant's at 4.9. 34 minutes, 7 fantasy points. Super, super low usage. He's out there for his defense. Like, I would just rather personally get to Tice. I would rather get to OG. I'd rather get to Marcus Morris, even though he's been more of a letdown. They're just better offensive players right now. Like, Grant really needs one of those games where he has, like, 4 blocks and 2 steals to get value right now. Like, in the regular season, he was a better point per minute guy because he wasn't playing alongside Jokic and Murray, right? He was playing in that second unit, so him, like Monte Morris, could do more offensively. Him playing alongside these high-usage guys like Jokic, Murray, and Jeremy Grant, he's just taking a back seat. So I'm not super interested in Jeremy Grant here at 4.9. Like, I would rather get to Marcus Morris. I know he hasn't been great, 14, 21, and 14 fantasy points, but he's a guy that he's just a better offensive player right now. I know he's also probably like the 5th option on this team, but I still feel a little bit better with Morris than I do Jeremy Grant. Still don't think Morris is an amazing play, but I think he's certainly viable there at 4.8. Talk about Jamal Green again. Grant Williams, I wouldn't play. I wouldn't take a shot at any of those guys below that. So let's move on to small forward. Again, Kawhi's at 10.4. He had a huge game that last game because the Paul George foul trouble. It really, really catapulted Kawhi to 71 fantasy points. So I don't think we get that again unless we get foul trouble from like Paul George or maybe like a Lou Williams, right? But Kawhi was the guy for most of that game because Paul George was sitting on the bench. So I like Kawhi again. I think the upside, with him, Jokic is probably a little bit higher than a guy like Tatum. It's just, do you feel comfortable with enough of the value on the slate to get to Kawhi Leonard? Mentioned Tatum. Yeah, Brown's a guy that's going to be really popular. He went for 60 last game. He looked good. He 31 real-life points, 16 rebounds. Obviously, the double overtime helped. This is a tricky one. I have interest. Brown's been a little bit up and down, right? The floor is somewhat low. If he's not shooting well, he has a floor of like mid-20s. So he is going to be the highest-owned Boston Celtic of the main guys. With him, Tatum, and Kemba. Kemba had the terrible game. Tatum's priced up a bit. Brown is going to be the most popular guy. And I don't have an issue with that. But if he's going to be like way more popular, then I'll just go to Kemba Walker, who had a terrible game last game, and the ownership will be 5%, like 10%, right? So I like Brown. I think he probably is your optimal spend up for Boston right now. But I might look elsewhere if I feel like the ownership is going to be super high. Let's see. Mention all those guys. Yeah, Norman Powell right now, at this moment, is my favorite value play. Played 38 minutes. Obviously, the double overtime helped. But it's looking like they're going with the small ball lineup. Now, could it change? It's possible, right? They could go back to Gasol and close with Gasol. It's possible. But right now, I like the upside more in Powell. Now, he had a big game because he's had 23 real-life points. The floor is low on him. Right? The floor is like 10 fantasy points. But if we're going to get minutes like 25-ish in regular time, like I have interest in Powell. And if he's going to close the game, that makes him a lot better. Now, like I said with a lot of these guys, it's not guaranteed that he's going to close the game. They can still go back to Gasol and close with Gasol. But last game, it was a small ball lineup. It was Norman Powell closing. So at the moment, I think Powell is my favorite value play. Now, those minutes, again, are not guaranteed, though. Shamet is a guy I will be completely fading. And the reason why, he got extended because Paul George foul trouble. That's it. If Paul George didn't get in foul trouble, we would have got like 10 minutes from Shamet. So I'm not going to Shamet. I will let others chase this game here. I'm not playing Torrey Craig. He's basically like out of the rotation. Did play 25. Was that last? Yeah, I guess he did play 25, but still, like he played 6 minutes of previous game. I guess, you know, if they're going to completely limit Millsap, I guess Craig's the guy that'll pick up a little more minutes. Obviously, MPJ as well. It's a super dart throw. I guess he's playable, but I'm not going to do it. And that's it for small forwards. Let's move on to shooting guard. Jamal Murray's at 8'5". Once again, a contrarian play for me. Jokic is a safer play. He does it more. He does more offensively. Rebounds, assists. Jamal Murray a little bit more scoring dependent. So the floor is low. We haven't seen a ceiling game really from him yet this series. We saw the big ceiling games against Utah. So does he have it in him against a tougher team defensively like the Clippers? I think it's possible. I think the ownership will be super, super low. So the reason I have interest in Murray is because I know he will be low owned. Paul George is at 8'4". He played 27 minutes because he was in foul trouble the whole game. Right? So he missed out on a good 15 or so minutes. Obviously, that kills him for value. If the ownership's going to drop on Paul George, I'm fine going back to him. I still think I think I slightly prefer Paul George again to Kawhi for the 2K discount. I don't think we get foul trouble again from Paul George. We could, but I don't think it's going to happen back-to-back games. So I like Paul George there in the mid-range. Van Fleet, Lowry, these are two guys I've basically been playing every single slate. I played Fred Van Fleet last game. I faded Lowry. Other than that, I've played them both together like every single time. We still, I know I've mentioned this, but I've still not got a good shooting game from Fred Van Fleet yet this series. Look at these games. 3 of 16, 8 of 22, 9 of 22, 6 of 19, 6 of 14, 7 of 22. Basically putting up 40 a night and then one up for 50. Obviously, the double overtime helps. So I'm fine going back to Fred Van Fleet again, because if he has a decent shooting day, the ceiling is really, really high. Now, him and Lowry have both been popular, and I think they will be popular again. So if you want to get off them for ownership, sure, it's a 2-game slate, right? There's definitely other ways you can go. But right now, he's looking like one of those Raptors guards I think are in your optimal lineup for sure. Marcus Smart made me look like an absolute fool that last game, going for 60 fantasy points and a triple-double. Well, it was partly due to Kemba doing absolutely nothing. So, do I expect Kemba Walker to be a ghost next game and just completely defer offensively? No. And what is going to happen here is the ownership is going to all go to Marcus Smart at 6'8". I don't think we get this game again. I don't even think we get this close to a game again from Marcus Smart. So if you want to go back to the well, that's fine. I will not be doing it. I will let others chase that game. I'm going to pass. It's kind of like he has one of those big games, like once every 10 to 15 games, Marcus Smart has one of those huge games. And he had it last game. It's there. The upside is there. But I don't think we get that in back-to-back games. Like he's been a guy that's like 25 to 30-ish to 35 maybe fantasy points a game. Now he's priced up to almost 7K. Again, I'm going to make that argument. It doesn't make sense to me to play Smart over Jaylen Brown. And I would rather play Kemba Walker than Smart. The ownership is going to be way higher on Smart. I'm fine going to Kemba for the lower ownership. You guys know it doesn't always work out, but you know how, or if you guys watch my videos for a while now, you know how I like attacking small slates. I like buying in on guys after bad games because the ownership always drops big time. So yeah, again, Paul George, foul trouble. He intrigues me. Kemba Walker was absolutely terrible last game, whereas Smart took over. I'm fine going to Kemba for the ownership. Back to the well. Lou Williams, I just can't get Lou Williams right. I literally can't. Whenever I play him, he just cannot hit the broadside of the barn. He'll play about 30 minutes. He's playable. If you want to play Smart over Lou Williams, that's fine. I know I preferred Lou over Smart last couple games. Smart's been better. 100% Smart's been better. So if you want to play Smart over Lou Williams, that's fine. I don't really know if I'm going to get to Lou. I think he's playable. The ownership will be super, super low. The upside is still there. We haven't seen him from it really yet this series. We saw it a couple times there against Dallas. He went for 50 and then 40, right? So the upside is there from Lou, but he's just been struggling shooting the ball. Gary Harris at 4'6", he was in foul trouble last game. Still put up 22 fantasy points. He fouled out, too. So he's someone that I actually am looking to for value because I think the plan is for him to play like 35 minutes in this game. I know he can be scoring dependent at times, but he, like a Norman Powell, are two of the better value plays, in my opinion, right now in the slate. Again, Craig's a dart throw. If he plays like 25 minutes, he's playable at 3-4, even though he's a super, super low usage guy. And that's it. Let's finish up with point guard. Mentioned Van Fleet, Lowry. Again, I think getting one of those Raptors guards is probably the optimal way to go. I just still prefer them to Siakam. They're going to play over 40 minutes. The price is a little bit higher on Lowry, so I think I slightly prefer Van Fleet, but I like both a good amount here. Mentioned Jamal Murray. Yeah, so Kemba's at 7-7. In 52 minutes, he had 19 fantasy points. He shot 2 of 11. This is a super, super contrarian play. Another play that if I was trying to make an optimal lineup in this 2-game slate, Kemba would not be in it. Probably would be one of those Raptors guards, Paul George, and Jokic. I think those spend-ups would probably be the optimal build. So, yeah, he's not going to fit in the optimal lineup. The ownership is going to be really low. It was already low the last time. He was like 20-ish%. It's going to drop to like 10%. And the ownership is going to sway to Jaylen Brown. It's going to sway to Marcus Smart. It's all about how risky you want to get, right? Again, this is not a play for the faint of heart, but the upside is 50 for Kemba. He can go for 50. And I don't think he's going to completely defer in a Game 7 here. So I'm fine going back to well for Kemba for the fact of he is going to be super, super low owned. Pat Beverly is another guy that I'm looking to for value. Not really going to break the slate, but he'll play 20, 25 minutes. He's a guy that doesn't necessarily have to score the ball. So, yeah, I have interest in Pat Bev. I think he's a pretty solid value play. Morris is a slightly riskier play. I think I slightly prefer Pat Bev. Right now he's getting a little bit more minutes, but both are similar. It's just Pat Beverly's playing a few extra minutes. Again, I'm not going to get to Shamet. Wanamaker's the last guy I'll mention. He played 19 minutes last game. Didn't play really at all in the overtimes. It's a tricky one, right? Like, how many minutes are we going to get from Brad Wanamaker? Well, there's games where he's played under 10 minutes in this series. There's also a game where he played 28 minutes. So what are the minutes going to be like? If I had to guess, I would say 16 to 18 minutes, somewhere around there. And that's playable, 3-3. Like, Wanamaker's not a terrible point per minute guy. He can get you, some rebounds, some assists. He can score the ball. So I think Wanamaker is playable, but another situation where you kind of got to get lucky and hope he gets minutes. There's still a chance he gets limited and plays like 10 minutes in this one. So that's really the breakdown today, guys, for this 2-game slate. I know I mentioned with a lot of players, but there's just the rotations on the value guys for most of the slate are so up and down. So it's a tricky one for sure, and one that I would not recommend playing a lot of money on. But that's going to wrap it up for the video. So if you haven't enjoyed the content so far, I'd really appreciate it, guys, if you could leave a like button on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to live stream for this one. I'll be on the road going back to Michigan here for the weekend, so probably not going to be able to live stream, but I will let you guys know for sure on Twitter tomorrow. Thanks again, guys. I hope you guys all have a good night, and I will see you all later.